I think I'm going to wait. I think I'm just going to get started. But for people that don't know, my name is Rita Scott. I am the author, of Woman in Waiting. And I am the founder of You Don't Know My Story Outreach Ministry. And I'm doing this live today. And I want to thank Pastor Tamara Harris for the opportunity and the platform for Pain to Purpose through the virtual conference. So I am here today to share my story. And I may not share all of it, but I'll share a good portion of it. So I'm just going to get started versus waiting for people to come in, because you can always go back and view it. So, and in the introduction that's on Facebook via Pastor Harris, she tells about my being a cutter, which I was, as well as my being a survivor of domestic violence, as well as having 16 strokes. So I think that's what I'm going to touch on for the most part. When I was 11 years old, I started cutting, but I didn't start initially in the form of actually cutting. I started off just stabbing myself with pins and stabbing myself with pencils. And not a lot of people understand the concept of what it is. And I didn't understand it until I went through it. Like, it's one of those things that you really have to go through in order to understand it. But with the concept of the cutting, per se, it was a release. Because I am one of those people that does not like to hurt other people, does not like to see other people in pain, it was easier for me to hurt myself. And it was so much of it was a release. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Because while you feel that you should be able to control it, while you feel that you should be able to just say no, it's almost like an obsession. So you can't really say no. You can't really not do it. I'm trying to find a spot where that light is not hovering, but I don't think I have one. So I cut until I was about 26. So I think I'm 11 years out from that time, and I haven't cut now in 11 years. A lot of people ask me, why don't you cover your scars? Why do you not wear long sleeves? Because it was the things that I went through in my past that put me in the place that I'm in now. It was the things that I went through and I grew through in order to be the woman that sits before you today. So I don't cover my scars. My scars are what pushed me into purpose. It was the pain that I went through that pushed me to where I am now. Am I perfect? No. Do I have a long way to go? Absolutely, I do. And we all do, because it's just part of being human. But it got me to where I am today, so I don't try to hide that. I am very transparent, and that's not everybody agrees with that, and that's okay. I have attempted suicide roughly somewhere around 12 times in my entire lifespan. And for every incident, I can't tell you why I did it. I just knew that I was tired and I was frustrated and I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to care, if that makes sense. I got tired of looking at everybody else's life and me not being the cool kid when I was in school, or the person that people wanted to hang with, or befriend per se. It was easier for me to just not be here, to feel like nobody wanted me to be around. So I was like, okay, if I'm not here, then a lot of people will be happy. So that's what I attempted. At the age of 18, I had my first stroke. And from that place, I've had 15 other strokes. The last 2 was in May of this year. And I've learned to walk, talk, and eat all over again several times over. And with that, it's rough. Oh my goodness, is it rough. But you make it through it. With a lot of prayer, a lot of worship, you make it through it. And that brings us to our current place, which is Woman in Waiting. Woman in Waiting is a book that God gave me some years ago while I was in the midst of a very brutal relationship, a very volatile relationship. And I am a domestic violence survivor. So I went through years of being with the wrong person because that's who I chose. Because I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't confident enough to just be by myself. So I was willing to accept any and everything. You know, as long as I had somebody there with me. As long as I had a person saying, I love you, I was good with it. And when you deal with domestic violence, you get people that ask you questions like, why did you stay? Why did you just not leave in the beginning? Why didn't you leave the first time? And what people don't get is by the time you make it to the physical abuse, you've already been in the verbal and the mental for so long till you don't feel like you have a way of escape. You don't feel like you have anywhere that you can go. You don't feel like there's anybody that cares or anybody that's going to love you through that place that you were in. And because of that, you're trapped. You're trapped mentally. You're trapped emotionally. And majority of the time, you're too scared to walk away because you don't know what you're walking into. It's unfamiliar territory, and to feel like you have to start all over, even though it would be more peaceful, it's hard to just walk away. In my case, it was the fact that I wanted my daughter to have her dad in the house. And it took me a while to realize that it's better to be in a single parent home and be healthy and have peace than it is to be in a double family home or with both parents, I'll put it that way, and live in misery your entire life. So I was like, okay, finally I had to make the decision when I was in a place to where I didn't care what happened to me anymore. I didn't care if I had peace anymore. And I was in a place where I was like, you know what? When you contemplate on taking somebody else's life, then it's time for you to go. Regardless of how hard it is, regardless of how difficult it may seem for you to get out, it's time to get out. So that's the place that I was in. A lot of people say, and it sounds cliche, but I assure you, it's so true, that love shouldn't hurt. And physical wounds heal. Black eyes heal, bruises heal, swelling goes down. But the emotional and the mental abuse that you go through when you're in a relationship that has domestic violence in it, it doesn't go anywhere. It has taken me years. I'm almost 3 years out of this relationship. And there are some things that I still find myself doing. Like we got to a place where I walked with my head down. I didn't make eye contact with anybody. I didn't look up because I had to fight if there was somebody that he swore I was looking at. So I had to fight through that. So I learned, and it took me, I was out for about a year before I realized that I still walked with my head down. I didn't make eye contact with people. And I think that's why eye contact is so big for me now. And that's why I'm such a stickler for eye contact. So with the book, I go through, when I was a little girl, I told God these things that I wanted. And I wrote a letter to God, and it was, I want this. I want a good man, God. I want somebody who's going to take care of his home. God, I want someone that leads so well to following him is effortless. All the good things that we say that we want. But because I became impatient and I no longer wanted to wait for God to manifest my kingdom mate, I chose to do it on my own. And I chose to take it out of God's hands. So I got married. And I was in this relationship. Actually, I've been married twice. So my first marriage was just a crock of bull. My second was domestic violence. And I went through different facets of life. I went through so much hurt. I went through abuse. Neglect, abandonment, struggles. that I would not have had to go through had I not made the decisions that I made. And I blamed God for years. I was like, how dare you allow me to be with someone who doesn't love me genuinely? How dare you, just let me be out here like this and be hurting, and you're not doing anything about it. And it took me a long time to come to the realization that God didn't promise him to me. God didn't give him to me. I chose him, and then I told God that this was the man for me. This is where I'm supposed to be. So Woman in Waiting is my story. It's my walk through the battles and the struggles that I went through while trying to manifest my own kingdom mate. It's very transparent. It's transparency at its best, actually. So I don't really, at this point, I don't care, because there are some people that's like, you were really open. Okay. That's just the place that I'm in. And I feel like things that are covered up and hidden can never be healed. So because of that, I just, whatever God says, speak, I speak. So in that book, in Woman in Waiting, it tells my story. The things that I asked God for, the hurt that I went through. And then it took me a while to bounce back to where that hurt came from. Like, really? But a lot of times when we as women have issues with men and we just kind of accept any and everything, it generally starts off with daddy issues. And I definitely had daddy issues. And I didn't realize it for the longest because my dad was my superhero per se. But it definitely started off with daddy issues for sure. So the book entails my daddy issues. It also entails the relationships that I've been through in trying to manifest my own kingdom mate. And my finally being in this place of peace where I'm okay being by myself. I'm okay being single and waiting for God to send the right man to me. It goes through my struggles being a single mother, from the relationships, us being homeless, us not having things because I chose to manifest things on my own. So if there was any inkling of hope that I could give to anybody today, or any encouragement that I could give to anybody, it would be wait on God. As hard as it seems, as difficult as it is at times, because it's still difficult for me. As difficult as it is at times, wait for God. Because some things that you go through in that process of trying to get back to the place that you were initially in, just patiently waiting, you wouldn't have to go through. And they're painful situations, and they're situations that will make or break you. And it can stay with you forever, good, bad, or indifferent. That's the thing. It's all in what you're going to do. Your story is your story. No one can tell your story the way that you can tell your story. And we're so overcome by the words of our testimony. So when you utilize your testimony and the tests and the trials that you've gone through in your life to help someone else, some people may not have to go down that road, all because they met you when they were getting ready to make that turn. And now it's like, okay, I listened to her story, or I listened to his story. And because I listened to his story and I see so many similarities, it's like, okay, God, I'm not going to make that choice. And sometimes I wish that I had someone that would have shared what they had gone and grown through with me. Maybe I would have made a different decision, and maybe not. You never know. But I just choose to be, or to use the test that God has turned into testimonies, and the mess that I've had in my life that God has turned into messages. I choose to share it with other people so that they know that not everybody has to go down that road. Now, like, there is a way out. Like, it's okay to be by yourself, because you can't expect for someone else to love you when you don't first know how to love yourself, because you'll accept anything. You're the first person that will love you the proper way. And you can't tell anybody how you want to be loved if you don't know what it feels like, because you don't love the person that's looking back at you in the mirror. That's the difficult part. That was the difficult part for me. It was looking in the mirror and loving the person that was looking back at me. Because it took me, I'm now 37, and I almost want to say it took me until I was almost 36 to be able to look in the mirror and love the person that's looking back at me, regardless of my situations, my circumstances, what I do or what I do not have. I love me. So I know my worth at this point. And I'm not willing to accept just anything. I'm not going to allow just anything into my life. But it took a lot of growth, and it took a lot of self-evaluation, and it took a lot of tears, a lot of prayer, me blowing up a lot of people's phone, like, okay, I'm gonna need you to help push me through this one. And when you can't push me, I'm gonna need you to pull me on across this line, because it's hard when you have to deal with you. When you have to deal with your stuff, you have to deal with your situations, you have to deal with your issues, because until you deal with your issues, you're gonna stay in that rut that you're in. Until you deal with the problems that are associated with you and the things and the people that have hurt you, you're gonna remain in that place. And that's what You Don't Know My Story is about. So everything just kind of ties in together. So we now go into schools and we mentor young ladies and even young gentlemen who just, so that they know they have help. Like I would not want to, I can't phantom seeing my child or other children go through the type of things that I have gone through in my life. So I just use it to help. It's not for likes, it's not for shares, it's not for posts, it's not for stardom or fame. It's just the mere fact that God has graced me to not look like the hell that I've lived through. God has graced me to where you can't look at me and know that I've survived 16 strokes. You can't look at me and know that I was walking with a walker in May of this year. You can't look at me and know that last year in 2017, the top of 2017, that I coded twice. God has graced me enough to not look like what I have gone through, to not walk in the shadows of the things that He allowed me to go through in order to get me to the place that I'm in now. And I thank God for that. So because of that, I just choose to share who I am. Hey, what's up, my friend? And even more than who I am, I share who I used to be, so that everybody don't have to walk in that. So I thank you so much for your time, for watching, listening, whatever the case may be. And I wish you nothing but the best. Have a wonderfully blessed day, and I will do a video soon. God bless.